What's up guys, Steve here. Hello? Yeah, this is Steve. You wanna talk about PSA submissions? Oh, you wanna talk about like customs and packaging and multiple packages in one submission and how to do the submission and the difference between the values? You wanna know about the international return shipping and everything like that? Yeah? I can do that. All right. You're doing your first PSA submission. That's amazing. I remember my first, best time of my life. I've done tens and thousands since then, and I'm here to help you out. What you will need are soft card sleeves and card savers. You know, these are called penny sleeves around the world. PSA recommends you use these. I recommend you use these. Always use a new fresh pack whenever you are doing a PSA card submission, as you don't want to have old sleeves that just have like dust and dirt and grime in them, and then you put them in the card savers and it pushes against it. You really don't want that. I also recommend opening up a fresh box of card savers every time you do a submission, as the same thing happens with these. Dust can settle in through the top, and you definitely don't want that getting into your cards. This is also PSA's recommendation. They tell you do not use top loaders. So if these are top loaders, don't use them at all. You have to use card sleevers when submitting to PSA. After all that, you need a little bit of bubble wrap, a cardboard box, and maybe even a bigger cardboard box, and then you can just ship the cards to PSA safely. I'll show you how to do it at the end. I'll show you how to do multiple submissions in one box. Now the cards are card savered and we are ready to go. PSA also recommends you do not use pull tabs on your cards when you do submit them. You also can't submit your cards in magnetic top loaders, huge plastic cases, or anything kind of like that. Go to psacard.com to start your submission. You'll see that you're meted with a whole bunch of different grading tiers and values and everything like that. The first two are Collectors Club exclusives. They're $15 per card and $19 per card. You need to be in the Collectors Club to use these submission tiers. It's basically just a PSA membership. It's $100 per year. I highly recommend it if you're going to submit more than 20 cards to PSA. You can still submit to PSA without a membership. If you only have 1, 2, or 3 cards, you can send them in the $25 tier or the $40 tier, depending on how fast you want to get them back. But if you have a lot of cards to submit and you want to do heaps at once, I highly recommend getting the membership and submitting through the $15 TCG bulk. Now there's a lot of words here and a lot of numbers. There's $15, $19, $25, $40, $75, $150. It's a lot to take in at once, but they're all based on turnaround time and submission value. So at the start here, we have $15 a card. Cards must have a declared value of $199 or less. This means this submission tier is best for cards that are under $200. The next one is $19 per card. Cards must have a declared value of $499 or less. Same sort of thing applies. You just go up the totem pole pretty much as you get more and more cards. If you have expensive cards, I recommend submitting them through a higher value tier. If you do submit an expensive card through a bulk tier or a lower value tier, it's highly likely you will receive an upcharge from PSA, and they will charge you the submission tier that it should have been submitted in the first place. Sometimes you'll have no way of knowing whether your card's going to be 9, 8, 10, and what the value is. Once they're those grades, you should look your card up on eBay and check what it sells for in a PSA 8, PSA 9, PSA 10, using an average of the 3 to determine the value if you really don't know exactly what it's going to get, because obviously that's why you're grading it. But it is always best to just have a decent range of the estimated value of the item you are submitting. I will say the upcharges are not that frequent. They do not happen that often. If you have a card that goes a little bit over the value tier of what you're submitting at, they don't really ping you on every single one of them. I submit thousands of cards. I very rarely get any upcharges. Sometimes I have cards that are $500 or $800 that come back in bulk, and it's perfectly fine. So PSA are pretty easygoing with their upcharge system. Now we have to remember that the turnaround times are just estimates. When it says here, $150 expressed, estimated turnaround time 5 days. That is 5 business days. It says down the bottom, a service level's turnaround time is the estimated number of business days that an order will be completed and shipped back once scanned into our facility. So that means the business day turnaround doesn't even start until they actually receive the order into the system. Not receive the order to their facility, not you shipping it out, nothing else. It has to be scanned into the system and then your business day starts. But in saying that, the estimated turnaround time is 65 days for some of these bulk submissions, and I've heard of like 3-4 months at the moment, and it is just getting longer and longer, and there's a chance that your 65 days can change to 90 business days just within a few weeks because of just how many cards they submit, and that's just how it is. So please remember, be realistic with how long it's going to take. They're going to do their best to get it done as fast as possible. Things can happen and it can get slower, or it can even be faster. It can work in your favor, and you can get a $40 tier that says 20-day turnaround time, and maybe it might finish in 10 days or 5 days. Start your submission. You just go to submit, start. All this stuff down the bottom here are just submissions I've already made, and they're just on the way to PSA, or they're just ready to send to PSA. But just to start a new submission, we just click start new submission. Now here's a bunch of things. We've got trading cards, oversized trading cards, coins, pins, packs, tickets, Funko Pops, FASC, which is from a sealed case where you can send like 27 Funko Pops at once. I've never graded the Funko Pop. It might be a good idea, it might not, I'm not too sure. But for this one, we're just gonna go trading cards. Next page, we've got grading, review, crossover, reholder. So grading is what we're going to choose. The review service is if you have a card that you don't think that the grade is deserved, you can send it back. They will review the card at the same tier that you send it in, like $40, $75, etc. And you might get a higher grade, you might not. I've never used the review service personally. Crossover is when you already have a graded card from another company. You can send it to PSA, they'll crack it out and they'll put it in a PSA case for you if you do not feel comfortable cracking it out yourself. And reholder is just if you have a case that's scratched up, damaged, cracked, but not on the surface and nowhere they can like affect the card, they can just reholder the card. I think it's just like $15, the same price as a grading fee. It does take quite a long time. You know, last time I reholded cards, it took almost 6 months, but that's just how it is. They are very busy as always. When it comes to grading, there's no autograph, dual service card grade, dual service autograph. That's all for like grading cards that have signatures on them. We're not going to do those today. We're just going to choose no autograph authentication, go down and hit next. So these are all the value tiers explained earlier. We're going to choose TCG bulk 1992 to present because some of my cards aren't very expensive, so I'm just going to put them in those tiers. As you can see, we just have all the tiers here: value, value plus, regular, express, super express. Then you can send cards that are up to $5,000 in value, grade them at $300 per card. Walkthrough, 10,000 cards value, grade them at $600 per card. Premium one, and these are the big boy cards, 250,000. I mean, that's a lot of money for a card, right? But we're going to choose TCG bulk and we just go hit next. Finding your cards sometimes can be difficult, especially if your card's in a foreign language or something like that. But I always recommend putting the language of the card. If you are submitting a foreign card like a Japanese card, Korean, Chinese, putting the language first and then typing the card game you are submitting. So for Pokemon Japanese cards, we type Japanese Pokemon. And for my card in particular for this video, it's my Snap Charmander. And the declared value is only $199 as it's not very expensive. Save that. Next card on the block is our Victory Ring 2005. There it is, Victory Ring Spring Battle Road. Our next one's Tropical Wind 1999. So we just go here, Tropical Wind 1999. There it is, Tropical Wind Promo Mega Battle. Sometimes it can be difficult to find your cards, but you might get lucky and they just pop up as the first one. Next one's our Coughing. Pretty cool card, that's $199. Our last card is our Master's Key. So we'll type that in here, Master's Key. It comes up, that's the first one. That's really lucky. This is only another $199. Ready to go. I will say on the maximum declared total value, PSA states here, the declared value is your estimate of the value of the item after it has been assigned a grade by PSA. So they pretty much want you to put your best foot forward on what you think it's going to be. I think these cards are just going to be $199 after whatever grade they get. This is best to put the correct amount that you think it's going to be because of insurance, and if it gets damaged by PSA, if it gets lost in shipping, and all these other things put together, I highly recommend putting correct cards in the correct tiers. If you're submitting multiple of a card, you just increase the declared value. So if we had 10 Master's Keys, we would just put 1999 if we thought they were worth 199 each card. Almost $2,000 would be the value of all the cards together. In my experience, PSA has only damaged 2 cards after roughly 20,000 submitted. They paid me out in a difference of value between the assigned grade. So PSA graded it at first, it got a 10, but then they damaged it in encapsulation. It then graded a 7 after it got damaged. They paid me the difference between a PSA 10 and a PSA 7 of that card, and it was fairly accurate and I was happy with the outcome. If I declared the card to only be $1 on my form, I feel like they only would have paid me out $1, but because I put $199 because it was worth around $200 in a PSA 10, they paid me out the correct amount. You have to hit next here. Oh, what's this? The selected service level requires a minimum of 20 items. That's right, if you want to submit at the $15 bulk tier, you have to send 20 items in that submission at the same time. Lucky for me, I have 15 of these Pikachu cards. I'm going to add them to the submission. We have our card. We're going to type in Pokemon Japanese 073 2022. So 073 is the card number, 2022 is the year, and here it is, Dark Phantasma Pikachu. They're worth around, 100 in a 10, so I'm just going to put $1,500, quantity 15, and hit save. The submission's finished now. We're going to hit next. We're at the return shipping options. There are ship free to the official vault of PSA. They'll hold the items for you for as long as you want, and then you can ship them back as you feel. That's a great alternative if you don't have a lot of space, or maybe you're in between houses, or maybe you're overseas on a trip and you don't really know when you get your submission back. And then when you get back, you just use the vault and just return them all to you at the right time. There is a little bit of a fee to ship your items back from the vault. Do remember that, but I do recommend it as a great service and I have used it before. In this submission, we're just going to choose ship back to me. From here on out, I can't really scroll down and show you how to fill out all these boxes, but it's just your address, your payment method. We get to the bottom of the page. You can either choose insured shipping, which I said me for international. They choose insured shipping, which is FedEx, and it just ships back to me as normal, or I can just use FedEx and use my own FedEx account if I did have that. You just have to choose insured shipping and they'll just send it back to you as is. They're here to remind you about import, export, all customs fees. They are applicable to you. PSA will not pay for them. If you do not pay for them, they'll just send it back. Later on in the video, I'll talk about Australian import fees. If you have any tips or anything about the country that you're from, feel free to throw it in the comment section. If you're looking for advice on submitting from other countries, check the comments and maybe someone from those countries have helped you out. So we hit next. Now we're in the last page. PSA just wants us to double check the submission, double check that it's right, go through your cards again, look at them again. Click here. I have read the PSA grading terms and conditions. It just covers all the terms and everything. If you really want to go through that, definitely recommend reading it just once. They do remind you at the bottom, your credit card will not be charged until the order is received and is in the possession of PSA. So what that means is pretty much the week before the items are getting shipped out to you, they will charge you. So if it takes around 4 months for a bulk submission at the moment, if I submit these cards now, they will charge me in 4 months' time. You can get caught up by submitting cards and maybe you have money now, but you spend the money and then 4 months comes through and then PSA is charging you and then everything goes badly. So I do recommend having the money ready in 4 months' time. Put it aside, pretend you don't even have that money anymore because you will need to pay for the submission. This last page, they just tell you to please follow the next steps. So you just go through these, arrange it, package it, print out all the submission forms, put the submission ID label on the package. We will go through that. These are the shipping options. If you're shipping through USPS, or using like an EMS service. So Australia Post is an EMS service, and I'm sure other countries' post offices are an EMS service. You use this shipping. CU Receiving, box 6180. If you're using FedEx, you use CU Receiving, 6110, E St. Andrews Place, etc., etc. All right, so let's print out submission forms. Before we move on to the packing, I'll just show you how to combine a few submissions into the same package and get a new PSA submission label that you can attach on the outside of that package. Just go back to the create order page, and you can see all your submissions here. If you scroll down, click the boxes, you can generate a new package label, and this is the one you print out and stick to the outside of the box. And once your submissions have reached PSA and they've been scanned into their system, this is what the page looks like. I've hidden a whole bunch of my order numbers and tracking numbers and stuff like that, but it gives you an idea of like the service level you submitted at. You can see the details on the submission. You can see which stage it's at. So we can have a look at one of my submissions here. It already went through all the stages of arrival, order prep, research, grading, assembly, QA1. Now it's on QA2. So it's pretty close to shipping. Usually QA2 is a few weeks out from it being finished, them charging you, and then finally shipping the cards back. And PSA has recently added a whole bunch of new systems where you can actually see your cards in the system. You can double check they're the right one. So this is my Gyarados card. Got a Dark Ampharos from Neo Destinies. And that's just what it looks like on the PSA order page. So we've done the cruel task of the submission form. Now we're on to the packaging. So I'm just going to throw out a few ideas for you here and there. This is the submission form. I have blacked out a few things, as you know, obviously just for privacy reasons. But we have our cards here. I'm going to show you what it's like, you know, just to send 5 cards, and then we'll do 20, and then I'll show you how I did 100 card submissions and 200 card submissions in the past. With 5 cards, you know, you can just get a little bit of bubble wrap and then put them in a tiny box. Fold the box up. Put the box in even more bubble wrap. Perfectly safe. For our box here, we put the cards in the box. We get our submission form, fold them up nice and flat, put them in, close the box. I do recommend then putting this box inside a bigger box. You just want to keep your cards as safe as possible, but that's one way you can do it. This keeps our card nice and safe. Best way. You always want to be safe. You want to practice as much safety as possible, as you do not want the cards to get damaged. So we're going to follow how the cards are on the PSA submission list. So here's all the cards here. You can also just put 20 cards into some bubble wrap like this and just fold it over itself. It's perfectly fine. It's not going anywhere. You could seal it with some tape if you want, but I hate using tape myself. I never use tape. You could put this in here, put a whole bunch more bubble wrap on top, and then put this in. Perfectly fine. I'll give you an idea of what multiple submissions look like, or maybe a bigger submission. Right here, we have a submission of 140 cards submitted inside the card grading box. So, you know, this is the first half of the submission, roughly 70 cards. And then I just have a piece of paper that just folds over and separates it from the other 70. So inside the box, you see we have the first card of the submission here, and then a little bit of piece of paper. But even if we didn't have the piece of paper, you can see that the last card, or the other half of the submission, as it's not facing them, and the PSA employees have gone through millions of cards. They know how the submissions are built. They know how it's done. Or another way to do it is by sending 2 submissions in one box. That's what this is. I have the submission papers in here with all the cards wrapped up nicely. So 2 submissions right next to each other. This works perfectly fine. Also, this box can go in another box and then you can submit them quite easily. Show you what I've done with a really big submission here. So open the box. There's actually 6 submissions in here, 4 in here, we got 2 in here, and then we just fill the blank spots in with a bit of bubble wrap, and then we'll just close the box off. Do you remember that submission label they asked us to print? I've got that here. You just chuck that on the side of the box or the front of the box, wherever you're comfortable. This pretty much means is like as soon as PSA gets the whole package in, they'll scan the label and you'll be notified that they have received your package, and all your submissions will get updated into their system automatically. I don't have a shipping label printed yet, but just imagine these white things here are shipping labels. Here's what I do when I submit to PSA. I always put 2 on the front, just in case one comes off. You know, if you have a printed label, you can just put 1 on the front. But I do always recommend getting another label, chuck it on the side or even on the bottom in case the box gets like flipped over somewhere. And then right at the very end, right before you pack it up, you get your label and you put it inside the box one more time. Just in case the 2 labels at the top come off while shipping, and then they open the box to see what's in it and they see if you put in another shipping label. This is also a great thing to do whenever you're selling like an expensive item, or you're just sending something that means a lot to you in the mail and you just want to make sure it doesn't go missing. Multiple shipping labels is always a great option, trust me. There we go, guys. That's a complete PSA submission. Now we're going to talk about a few other things now. I sent multiple submissions in that box. I just do it to kind of save on shipping and just to get a big heavy box there. I always feel like a larger box, a box with like more weight in it, is always a little bit safer when traveling overseas. Now I sent 6 submissions in that box. What that means is 6 separate submissions are going to come back to me. I'm paying shipping 6 different times on all those submissions. They won't ever combine them and just send them back in one because they notice like that's your submission. They will always just do exactly as you say on the submission form and then send them back as is. So yeah, they're just going to send those packages to me one at a time, and they are going to charge me individual for every single one of them. The turnaround times, even if all of them say 3 to 4 months turnaround time, some of them might finish in 3 months, some of them might finish in 5, some of them might finish in 4. You know, you're not going to get, you send 6 submissions in one box, not all 6 are going to finish on the same day, the same week, or maybe even the same month. You might have one finish in 1 month. You know, they're not really have a pure first in, first out system, but it is pretty good where like a submission, if you send a whole bunch at once, will get finished around the same time. And then if you send a whole bunch at once the next week or 2 weeks later, they'll get finished around the same time. But it's not perfect. You know, they're getting millions of cards. It's not that easy to actually handle that many cards. The baseline fee for international return shipping is roughly $45. Plus the amount of cards you have. So I did 20 cards in the submission and the return shipping fee was $65 at the end. But you know, I have done like 160 card submissions and it kind of averages out to like $180. I'm not too sure how they do it. They must have like certain tiers or amount of cards you send that the return shipping costs as much, but you always have to kind of budget for at least like $1.50 per card return shipping when you're shipping to PSA internationally. What we have here is kind of how the customs and tax stuff works. So the way that PSA marks the value on the boxes, they base it on the submission value plus the postage price. So if I submitted my cards and they cost $600 to submit to PSA, so we send 40 cards at $15 tier, that's $600, and then their return shipping, whatever it might be around $80. They will mark the value at $680 US, and that's $680 US marked on the box. Now the taxes and customs and everything in your country, I'm not 100% sure. I'm from Australia. We have a tax law that anything over 1,000 Australian dollars is subject to duty and taxes, which is roughly an extra 15%, plus they charge you like a $50 fee. $680 US is roughly 1,000 Australian dollars. So that will be subject to duty and taxes. So if you're trying to like avoid this or however you're trying to do, submit a certain amount to avoid the total value of your submission plus return shipping to be lower than the $1,000 threshold. I know nothing about any other country. I really don't know how they work, but if you're looking to avoid those kind of extra fees, it's great to do, but I'm not going to go and just tell you, yes, you definitely should, because I'll go to jail for a million years. But that's how it works. They base it on the submission price plus the shipping fee is the value of the box when they send it back. So I'm going to say it again because it's one of my most asked questions. So hopefully that helps you out if you're an international submitter. Now, what postage service do you use? I always highly recommend when it's stuff that you can't get back or you're sending it overseas or it's just your stuff and you love it, use the fastest shipping service you can afford and a signature on delivery confirmation. Insuring your shipments to PSA or any grading company, this is a really hard one because here is my thoughts. These are my recommendations. You can do whatever's most comfortable for you. I advise that you go to the shipping service that you are planning on using. Ask them about insurance. Ask them about the process. Ask them about, do you even get paid out for what the items you are sending? Ask them what the maximum value you can declare a package at. All these things are super important for you to know with your own shipping service. I will let you know, I usually do not insure my packages when sending them overseas, as I have in the past, have had things gone missing and I haven't been paid out, and I've been a pretty sour experience with my experience in things that I'm sending. But I'm not going to go and tell you, don't use insurance, your country won't help you, your postal service won't help you, anything around with you won't help you. I would just say, I don't use it personally, but you can do whatever you feel is best. PSA gets tens and thousands of packages every day. It's 99.999% safe to send every single thing to them. Things happen. I'm just going to say submissions can get lost. Never happened to me. Knock on wood, because, you know, that would be a crazy big deal for me if something happened like that. But I pray it doesn't happen to anyone who watches this video submitting. But I do recommend just using the fastest service you can afford and a signature on delivery. I send with Australia Post Express, or I use FedEx Express if it is a crazy rare expensive card. If you're in the US, I'm sure USPS just does a great job, or you could use FedEx. I've never been in the US and submitted to PSA from the US, but I just recommend using an express service, maybe a one-day option, and using a signature on delivery definitely. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you have any questions, always feel free to put them in the comments. I know it is scary sending your cards overseas to get graded. Even in America, I'm sure it's scary to sending your cards to get graded. Anything could happen, but I'm telling you right now, I have submitted thousands. Oh, I don't even know how many. Honestly, I don't even know how many cards I've submitted. I got a big stack here. I got another big stack. I mean, I don't know. I think I've graded probably roughly 30 to 45,000 cards. Honestly, I've been doing this for so long that my brain is honestly exploded. That's pretty much how it is, right? But trust me, it's going to be okay. Choose a registered method, express postage, PSA professionals. Nothing ever goes wrong. Trust me. I've had 2 cards damaged. It actually only happened 4 days ago. 2 cards damaged, and they were like $80 and $200, and they paid me out accordingly. I got a refund from them. I got the submission back and everything was okay. If something does happen to your cards, reach out to PSA as soon as possible after you get the submission back. They are professionals. They will help you out. I'm always there on Instagram if you ever need any help with anything. You know, if you want to show me some cards you're submitting, I can give you my ideas. Maybe submit it, maybe don't. Over time, you will get better and better at submitting. You'll know which kind of cards and which damage to the cards is good. I got heaps of videos on this channel of PSA returns, how to check cards condition, all this other kind of stuff. So go check at those. I always show like the conditions of 9s and stuff I get back to show what's kind of wrong with them. That's it from me. I hope you had a great day and I hope you enjoyed this video.